Well, that was a great panel presentation, and I really appreciate everyone's input on that. Our next presentation is going to be by Mr. Andy McLean, who you just saw on that panel, CEO of Trans Indonesia. Andy, please come on up. Please welcome him.
Thanks, mate. I'm going to need that. Just down arrow, is it? Yeah, okay. Good evening again, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to present. I have a fairly short presentation. Thanks, Eric. It's about what we've achieved over the last 5 or 6 years. I've been living in Indonesia for the last 6 years. I'm originally from New Zealand, but I've lived in Australia for a long time and have built networks in both countries. And as I mentioned before on the panel, the reason that I'm in Indonesia is because of the opportunity and the size of the market and the potential. And the fact that it's so undeveloped is attractive and definitely lacking in infrastructure. So it's not just telecommunications, it's roads, it's power, it's gas, it's everything. So, you know, the whole country is in need of infrastructure, and John mentioned 5,000 islands. It's actually 17,000 different islands that are bundled together. And despite all that, the quality of the mobile networks is actually quite good as far as geographic coverage goes, compared to Australia, for example, where 95% of the population live on the coast. There's large parts of Australia that don't have mobile coverage, but probably 95% of Indonesia as a country has mobile coverage. The quality of the networks is another matter, but definitely the spread of the networks is good. So the opportunity we saw was driven by that lack of visible infrastructure, and the drivers for the growth and the requirement for optical fibre infrastructure is primarily on the back of the mobile networks. So Indonesia is a country where it skipped a generation. You don't have the traditional copper-based networks or microwave-based networks that you would see in other countries. Everything's driven by the mobile handset, and since deregulation occurred, there's been a lot of money spent on licenses and a lot of money spent on rolling network. And in the market today, there's 7 mobile carrier license holders. There's actually no MVNO model there yet, but it's coming. But all of this is drivers for backbone bandwidth and international bandwidth. So we've seen 2G go to 3G. We've seen 90% of the internet growth being driven by mobile handsets. And just to give you some stats, mobile penetration's now gone through 100%. So there's 270 million handsets. In some ways, those figures can be misleading because, as you know, in most Asian countries, people have 2, maybe 3 handsets, and SIM cards are churned regularly depending on what deal the carrier has. So it's quite misleading, but despite that, the growth is still there, and a lot of these mobile carriers have been caught out because they've designed networks and the growth has been greater than they expected. And everyone sees base stations on towers and buildings. Those base stations are under incredible pressure from not just the number of users, but what those people are doing. And applications such as Facebook and Google and browsing and social networking has just driven bandwidth requirements through the roof. And now in Indonesia next year, they're going to award 4G licenses. So I'm not saying we predicted this was going to happen, but we've been quite successful in establishing our network in a very short period of time. Primarily at the moment, It is a backbone network in Sumatra and Java, and we've established 6,500 kilometres of network, and that touches a population of 120 million people. So it's quite a big market that we've managed to capture. Our customers are mobile carriers, traditional carriers, international carriers, and I should mention that Sean and Eric from AP Telcom are one of our partners who are helping us develop the international component, and we have partnerships with companies like Fabrizio, Global Cloud Exchange, and formerly Reliance, and we're developing those relationships. So the traffic is that terminating Indonesia, we're distributing within the country. So for us, that's working quite well. Another interesting one is the media. There's a number of media companies, so pay TV and cable network operators, metro cable network operators. There's a few of those developing, and they have very, very large bandwidth requirements, but 99% of it's domestic. And so we're distributing their content for them between the capital cities within Indonesia, and it's growing quite extensively. On the corporate side, we've stepped back from corporate for the moment because we're positioning ourselves as a wholesale player, but eventually we'll be in that space. The focus of this conference is obviously international, and I'll speak a bit more about that and the growth that we're seeing. But part of our business is provision of IP transit, and what did I do there? Yeah. So the IP transit traffic into Indonesia over the last 4 years has increased roughly 10 times. It's gone from 100 gig. It's now a terabit essentially, coming primarily through Singapore. So the discussion we had in the panel with John about what's happening with CUS and other cables, and Fabrizio's initiative to do something out through the Middle East and Africa, that those cables have great potential. And for us, as part of our business, we see that as having major upside. Also, the potential cables coming out of Australia as well. I mentioned the mobile carriers. We're working. Sorry. Oh, that one. So I'll keep talking. I'll keep talking. So a big part of our business is fiberisation of those base station assets for the mobile carriers, and a lot of them are in a position where they spend a lot of money developing network, and the bandwidth requirements are going through the roof, and they don't necessarily have the capex to build additional network, and they're quite smart about it because it's much better for them to spend their money on promoting the network and customer care than being a network operator. So where it makes sense for them, they're purchasing network off us, and it's working out quite well. Just getting back to our business model, we just didn't say we're going to build 6,000 kilometres of fibre. I think the days of people going out and building network and hoping customers will come are over. So we actually secured forward contracts on our network before we built, and that is our business strategy. We will actually secure business before we commit money to build network. It's not happening. The remainder of the presentation is just a few maps to show you, but if I could talk about the construction of the network and what we went through to do that. Yeah. No, just go to the maps then. Yeah. Okay, so what you're looking at there is Sumatra on the left, which is the biggest island, and we built a cable from Jakarta to Medan, the submarine section across the Sunda Strait. Interestingly, we've leased that. We looked at building it at one stage, and in fact 5 years ago we couldn't get anyone to quote on it. Everyone was so busy, but that changed pretty quickly. And but it made sense for us to lease that rather than build it. So in Sumatra we have 28 points of presence all the way up the backbone of Sumatra. There's a lot of oil and gas activities there. There's palm oil, there's a lot of commercial activity, so it's quite strategic. And obviously in Java we have quite an extensive network as well, 36 cities in Java. And by Australian and New Zealand standards, they're all big cities. There's a lot of cities with 1 million plus people, so it's the potential's very, very good. But just getting back to the construction of the network, the 2,500 kilometres that we built from Jakarta to Medan is all direct buried cable within a conduit. But we employed 4,000 staff to do that over an 18-month period, and there wasn't one machine used on that project. Everything was hand dug. Which where we come from, you would not do it that way, but it's just the way it's done, and the result's actually quite good. And there's various reasons for that. As I mentioned, every kampong in town and city that you go through to obtain permission to install a cable, you have to employ the local labour. So if you bring labour in from outside, it's not going to work. So overall, we employed about 4,000 people over 18 months. And as I said, there's a lot of subplots to that. Okay. To date, we've established a backbone network in Sumatra and Java, but we still see the metro fibre being probably the most strategic part of the development of our network. So to date we've established network in Medan. We have a metro network in Medan. That's primarily built around touching all the points of presence of the key carriers, so Indosat, XL, Hutchison and Telcom. But we're developing that and extending that almost on a weekly basis to reach other customers. And aside from Medan, we have a network in Jakarta, we have a network in Surabaya, and we're targeting 7 key cities in Java this year, in the next 12 months, and in Sumatra 4 key cities to roll fibre network. But once again, I need to stress that that is based on winning business, so BTS style projects or metro fibre style projects. So for us, it's been a pretty exciting ride, and I think we're extremely well positioned with a strong network and a really strongly emerging market. So watch this space, and thank you. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Andy. Any questions for Andy? Yes, please, in the back.
I was just curious, on one of the slides you mentioned mobile front haul as well as the classic back haul. So just, are you actually actively deploying front haul solutions?
No, we're currently developing product, gating the product at the moment, but that's definitely on our roadmap. Yeah, we see that as being very strategic. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andy. Our next presentation is going to be by Paul Blanchorgan over here, and he was already up here earlier, so he needs no further introduction. Please welcome me, or please join me in welcoming Paul.
All right, good. In control. I'll use this. Is this working? Hello? Yeah, good. Okay, my name is Paul Blanche-Orban from Cambodia, and I'd like to say thank you for Subsea asking us to actually come here and show what we're doing. Okay, the population of Cambodia is around 15 million, and the same as a lot of other countries in this area. Half the population are under 30, so there's a lot of growth there. Penetration is about 16%. Oh, it's 24 years, not 52%. 20% of the population are urbanised. Now, they say there's 19 million mobile phones, but actually, again, it's people have multiple phones, and again, with churn, they have many SIMs, which seem to get thrown away all the time. GDP should rise over, is it 2010? It's a bit out of date, isn't it? Okay, EasyGone was launched in 2007, and we acquired Telcotech, which is a wholesale division, in 2011. We're the only ISP in Cambodia that's certified by ISO. Most of our business now is wholesale, corporate and banking. We decided this because the market for ISP was too crowded and too many price wars, and there was a need for backhaul and international connectivity. So we decided to opt for that area, which we've done quite well on. We do have, at the moment, we have terrestrial connections, as I said before, with Thailand and Vietnam. But this is, it's kept the prices up for Cambodia, and it's held us back a bit. Well, our missions, you can see. We want to be a premium provider, obviously. We want to give quality of service to our customers in the country. So on the fibre network now, obviously we need our own landing station, our own cable coming into the country, because, as I said, the prices are so high for connectivity. We've been looking at who we could do this with, and several cables are coming past us, but the price is prohibitive, and we just cannot afford to land them. So there was a possibility given to us by Telecom Malaysia to do a cable between us, them, and Cambodia. And this is now going to happen, I believe. We're just selecting the vendor now, and there we go. As you can see from the red, it's going from Thailand, Phnom Penh to Malaysia. Now we have a share of the AAG cable, the Asia American cable, and we will be able to connect directly into it. At the moment, when we bought Telcotech, they had a share in the AAG cable, but no way of getting into it other than terrestrially. So we haven't been able to benefit from it. So now we can actually connect directly to it, and we can pass this on, there's a savings on to our wholesale market in Cambodia. So everybody will definitely reap the benefits of that. I think this also will bring down the costs of the terrestrial routes. The adjoining countries are going to have to come down in price, I think, and that will bring the whole thing down and make it more affordable. Now, we've already got 4G in Cambodia, albeit quite small at the moment. This is going to grow, obviously, and there'll be more and more bandwidth needed. And I believe, like some other people, that the growth in data is going to be mobile, not fixed. So as they roll out the 3G and 4G, and there's 3 major companies really in Cambodia doing this, So it's going to happen quite quickly. Oh, that's good. Huh? Ah, that's the cable on its own. Doesn't make much sense. I think I've... Oh, yeah. So we're expecting to... the construction should start early 2015, with RFS first quarter of 2016. You're actually talking about more gigabytes to start with, but the cable is capable of 8 terabits in the future. And we'll obviously be going to Malaysia. We will have the possibility of going to many other cables in the world. So I think this is very good for Cambodia, and I hope this goes ahead as soon as we can. Thank you. You said something. That's all wrong. You didn't update that.
Thank you, Paul. Any questions for Paul before we let him step away? Any questions for Paul?